There are many ways you can travel north from Christchurch. You can fly, or go by train. You could hitch, or bike. Maybe not. Fortunately, my cameraman and I had time to consider the options. We would go north by Jag. I'm on what's known as the old Main North Road. You can see the new Main North Road over there. This is the old Waimak Bridge, and it was one time the Main North Road out of Christchurch. That was, of course, before they built the motorway in the 1960s. I suppose it's a bit like Route 66, only shorter. My destination is the picturesque township of Kaiapoi, the river town of North Canterbury. The Kaiapoi River flows through the centre of the town and is a tributary of the Waimakariri River, which originates deep in the Southern Alps. This river is one of the few places in New Zealand where you can catch a Chinook salmon. It also hosts not a bad population of brown trout. Kaiapoi was once a trading settlement for the Ngātahu, and it gets its name from the pa, or fortified village, which was located here. The pa was built in the early 1700s between what we now call Woodend and Waikuki, about 10 k's north from here. It was isolated, and food had to be swung across the lagoon to be stored there for later distribution. Hence the name Kaiapoi means to swing the food in. As the township of Kaiapoi developed, a coastal port was established here in the early 1860s. It remained a working port until 1938. It was 20 years later, in 1958, that the Kaiapoi Borough Council reopened the port of Kaiapoi to ease shipping congestion at Lyttelton. From 1961 to late 1966, records show that the port of Kaiapoi was certainly a busy place, with more than 35,000 tonnes of cargo and 157 ships arriving and departing the port. But in 1967, rail ferries and the high cost of handling the ships brought an end to the port's 9-year revival. The port of Kaiapoi was officially closed in 1969, but the Kaiapoi Borough Council at the time preferred to use the word suspended, pending further business. Kaiapoi has a number of iconic buildings and businesses. Blakely's is a family-owned business that's been in Kaiapoi for over 80 years. They make antiques of the future and have become the country's most respected specialist in handcrafted antique reproduction furniture. Then there's Blackwell's, established here in 1871. Blackwell's is now the oldest department store in the country.
My great-great-grandfather, George Henry Blackwell, shifted to Kaiapoi in 1871. And he set up a little general store which he called the Railway Store because it coincided with the first railway being built between Lyttelton and Kaiapoi. From there he traded pretty much as a general store for 3 or 4 years, and it was on the main street just not far away from where our store is now.
In 1921 they moved to their present site, which was formerly the location of Middleton's Hotel. The Blackwell's building was badly damaged in the 2010 earthquake and later demolished, but there was never any doubt about the future of Blackwell's in Kaiapoi.
It was a pretty traumatic period for those 2 or 3 years until we were able to re-establish ourselves and able to rebuild and get back on the same site in a lovely new building. We've been in Kaiapoi many years, and Kaiapoi's been a great place for the family to live. We were determined to stay here.
Another Kaiapoi icon is this building, the Kaiapoi Woolen Mill. The mill site was first opened in 1866, and it was really established to cash in on the booming flax industry. However, that emphasis changed, and by 1878, the newly formed Kaiapoi Woolen Manufacturing Company became the owner. And as the wool industry boomed throughout New Zealand, the company expanded, providing long-term employment for generations of local Kaiapoi families. The company built a reputation for quality, 100% pure woolen products, a reputation that put Kaiapoi on the global map. The closure of the mill in 1978 marked the end of an era for Kaiapoi. By 1991, a second major employer, the Kaiapoi Freezing Works, would also close. Both the mill and the works had given Kaiapoi its distinctive identity. There was concern for the river town's future. But Kaiapoi is a very resilient town, and even after they'd been badly damaged in the 2010 earthquakes and the many aftershocks after that, the community is very determined to rebuild itself.
Kaiapoi is going to have a brand new, very modern town centre, and there's a real opportunity there for everybody in a commercial sense and residential sense for the future. There's a real buzz now. Obviously, everybody was affected by the earthquake in some way, but pretty much everybody's come through that stage, and things are going up again. Things are going in the right direction, and there's a buzz and real positive feel about the town now, which is great.
Coming up, we look at an urban design project to revitalise Kaiapoi. Earlier this year, a group of third-year architectural students from CPIT presented ideas from the urban design project to revitalise Kaiapoi.
And they are actually ideas that the council and the community could actually take on board and actually continue discussing. One of the ways of interacting with the community, giving back to the community, is actually this one. I mean, we have a population of students that they will be once perhaps residents of that area. We don't know. And if we don't listen to them now, when do we listen to them?
We got, I think, quite inspired with the river in some aspects. But
The river was very much the focus for many of the aspects of the design, because Kaiapoi is supposed to be a historic river town. And as it stands, the town has its back turned to the river, with stop banks from most of the walking paths. You can't actually see the river unless you're actually on the stop bank or on the bridge. So that was definitely a main point for us to focus in, try and bring that focus back to the river and validate the identity of the town.
So how much were you able to change what's there to make it more exciting for the future?
For example, the large red zone, we proposed a recreational area where you'd have bike parks, you have horse tracks that will be connected with the beaches from Kaiapoi. You'd have, then this more red zone area, you would have an amphitheatre and an orchard, which is just beside a high school, Kaiapoi High School. So that would work very well for these students to leave the school and maybe work in an orchard, so they could, create that whole community, so they would take care of their land.
Did you actually do shapes of buildings, or was it more sort of flow?
We didn't do full architectural projects for specific buildings, but we do design shapes in the way they different buildings might interact with each other or interact with the river, and that's the important part. And definitely flow, how different areas interact with each other, how you might be drawn from one area to another, and that comes back to that pedestrian culture, which is a very important part.
For example, in the banks of the river, because the river goes down and then you have two banks that are quite high, so we created buildings that will be sitting on top of the banks in some ways, and they would create that social connectedness between both sides of the river.
How big a step up has this project been for you about to launch into the real commercial world?
Oh, so handy.
It's big valuable experience, especially with the integrated interaction with the council, because as architectural students, when we go out into the workforce, these are the kind of people we're going to be working with. So that was an invaluable experience, definitely.
Simon Markham is with the Waimakariri District Council. I asked him about the scope of the rebuild in Kaiapoi.
This town took a real hit through the September 2010 earthquake, and it's 4 years on next week. But out of this disaster has come some real opportunity now. After a lot of pain and redevelopment, opportunities have opened up, and to bring it back better than it was before in terms of the town centre in particular. So we're seeing now very much into the rebuild phase. We've had some developments completed, and certainly a lot on the drawing boards and in the early stages of construction. So what we can see coming up in 2015 is a reasonable amount of ribbon cutting, starting with the library, service centre, museum, art display space that the Waimakariri District Council will be completing in January. That's a major facility in the centre of the town, and that's a really good facility for foot traffic and of course for all of the services that are available there. We've got on the north side of the town centre or of the river in the town centre, we've got private redevelopments that are now in the early stages of construction or advanced stages of planning, and they'll come to fruition through 2015, and that'll help bring the north bank of the river alive. The council's got some advanced work happening on the riverbank redevelopment, so we're spending about $10 million redeveloping the wharf, Truslow Park redevelopment, which is currently under construction. The Coast Guard building is being prepared to be rebuilt. So it's after a long period of planning and speculation about the future. I think it's looking really good. Now we've got the opportunity to refocus the commercial heart of the town towards the river and take advantage of a great setting and the recreational opportunities that represents. There are some issues to be addressed around the ecology of the river and its river function as well, so there's a project team on that at the present time. About a quarter of the housing in the town was earthquake affected through red zoning, and people have ended up living in locations that were not their first choice. So in that aspect, I think there's room for optimism as well. I think in Kaiapoi the mood is on the up. There are still people who are in the throes of insurance process in their own lives, and we need to respect that and acknowledge that. But the red zone areas have all but vacated, other than those who have decided to retain their property, and we're in a process of engagement with the community around the future use opportunities that the red zone presents. And it's good to be able to focus on the future. There is cause for optimism.
Coming up, I visit a place that is closer than you think. The Waimakariri district has experienced a rapid population increase, a trend that is predicted to continue well beyond the 51,000 people who already call Waimakariri home. I've come here to Silverstream, a new comprehensively planned community in semi-rural Clarkville on the western outskirts of Kaiapoi, to see where many of the Waimakariri's new residents have come to live. Silverstream is a unique residential community carefully planned within a rich natural environment. H Investments, together with Mike Greer Residential, Mike Greer Commercial, Heb Construction Limited and Davis Ogilvy, are partnered in the Silverstream project and proud to bring this outstanding residential development to North Canterbury.
Look, it is a wonderful site, but sometimes the more complicated a site gets, it's where it really pushes back on your experience. On the outset, you know, sites look really easy and it all works on a calculator, but it's a really long journey and you need to get it right. And it's the back end of a project that actually makes the community start to have its own heartbeat. And that's really what we've got here. We started just over 2 years ago. And now we've got hundreds and hundreds of homes built with what's better than the homes built. You've got families living in here, and that's just amazing for us. It's an incredible reward that a calculator can never really give you that type of return. So seeing communities, families living in here, people walking their dogs, kids, grandkids, it's really, really lovely, and that really puts you in a great position to then allow the subdivision to mature as a really, really vibrant community.
It's a very long process, and particularly this development, it's a magnificent development. I mean, it's just the most beautiful setting and scenery, but it has so many moving parts, bridges and stormwater retention ponds and a new bridge to be built just here where we're standing shortly. There's so much to this development that it's really quite a complicated process. The undergrounding of the power lines, for instance, has been a massive project. We didn't expect that to be as complicated as it is, but the rewards are there. I mean, when the power lines go down and they're undergrounded, that will really cap this development.
What's different about this project is earthquake, and we, like all Cantabrians, are dealing with issues, cost escalations and so on that we've never been through before. So yes, we have budgeted, but as we've gone along, we've had some surprises, we've also had some upsides, and you've really just got to take it in your stride. And that's the difference between an established, reputable organisation and someone who's getting into the industry. Because someone getting into the industry who's not financial enough to be able to hold some of these things and actually deliver on their promises, get themselves into trouble only because they haven't made certain allocations or their company's not strong enough to see it through.
So it took us close on to 6 years to go through the approval process. And we started construction in February 2012. So yes, it's a bit over 2 years, a bit more than 2 years that we've been actually building. And in that time, there's been a massive amount of development and growth here. As Fred said, there's quite a few hundred homes. There's sections. We're starting a shopping centre only this week. The bridge, there's villas being built. It's all happening. But what's really pleasing is to see how beautiful it is and to see people living here and seeing that they're happy. There is a community, and as the shopping centre evolves and people start to see the final picture, then you can really see this development. And we are, as Fred said, we are delivering everything we promised. We said we promised we'd do the power lines. We're doing the power lines. Everything we've promised, we've delivered, or in the process of delivering, and will be completed shortly. It's a magnificent site. You walked on the land, and it just, sometimes you can see something, a piece of land, and it speaks to you. You know, you feel, there's something special about it. And people say it to us all the time. This community has, this development has a heart. It has how do they describe it? They say a beautiful feeling, or a good feel. A good feel?
Yeah.
I think anyone in a particular business has kind of like an intuitive feel about things. And it's almost like an energetic experience. When you walk onto a piece of land, it either feels good or it doesn't feel good. And this has the most beautiful stream running through it with fish and the trees. It's just magnificent. And you can't help but fall in love with it. I mean, we just loved it. We bought it straight away. We probably should have taken a bit more time to work out how much power lines cost to take underground, but it was just such a magnificent site. You couldn't. It's something you can work with. You can create something beautiful from. If you've got the raw materials, you can create something beautiful. If you haven't, you can't. And we want to create something we want to look back and say, we did that, and everyone's happy. We've created a kind of like a little utopia. So that's what's for us is really, it drives us a lot. I mean, money is one thing, but if you focus on the money, you don't really get there. If you focus on creating something really good and you're passionate about it, then the money follows, hopefully. Hopefully.
We have got a very good reputation. We've been around now for over 20 years. We're a Canterbury-based firm. We've been in the market through thick and thin, and we're consistently building really good homes. And that name is synonymous with good homes. And so people, no matter what walk of life, have heard of us generally. Their parents have heard of us, their family have heard of us, and that gives them a sense of trust, I suppose. And we're consistently also providing a very nice product. Our homes are at a lovely level. You can walk into our homes, what you get is what you see. There's no smoke and mirrors about it. We provide fixed price contracts. There's a lot of sense of security around working with Microware Homes and the homes that we build. It's a wonderful development. It's got fabulous green spaces, a beautiful river running through it. The developers have put quite a bit into the infrastructure, and there's a really good mix of types of homes in here. So you've got your standalone type homes with a more family orientated. You've got some slightly smaller homes where perhaps older people or first home buyers are buying into. You've got 2-story homes, more townhouse type living. So it's a really nice mixed community. And if you come out here on any given day, particularly on a sunny Sunday or a Saturday, particularly in the summer, the children are in the river, playing around the river, and people are walking around. It's got a real heart to it. And with the community shops that are being developed here, that gives a further sense of kind of, belonging.
H Investments in putting the subdivision together really have given a lot of thought and set aside some really extensive landscape and green space areas. Having the Silver Stream actually run through the subdivision is a key focal point, and on either side of that they've set aside some really extensive esplanade strips that actually lend and morph into the residential property. So for example in the B2 block, they're oriented towards the river with their outdoor living space, so you actually get the feeling, if you like, that you come out of the house into your own space, and then you've got the extensive landscape area beyond that of course you don't have to mow. It's the subdivision there, they've given a lot of thought for that connectivity between open space areas and the community, so it's very much community based and focused.
Silver Stream was it's a signature project for us. We John and Fred, John from H Investments, 2.5 years ago I still sat and had a coffee with him, and he had this idea, and we just wanted to, he was the type of guy that we could work with, and a lot of collaboration going on, and they had a vision, and they needed a contractor that could get up and go, and we had that, and we with our subdivision experience and our land development experience, we were on board, and we've been there ever since. We're on our 4th stage now, with a couple of external packages on the periphery. And it's going well, and it looks good.
We've been involved with Fred and John for probably about 7 years. Once they purchased the land at Silverstream, we were involved with making a submission to Waimak District Council. There was a council-initiated plan change to rezone the land as residential, so we're involved in putting together the submission for that. That process took a couple of years. We raced forward to the earthquake, and the airport contour restricted residential activity. The earthquake happened. That restriction got removed, and it enabled the whole site to be rezoned as residential.
So I've been involved in Silverstream since about 2006, so that's nearly 8 years. I've been looking after the design aspects of it and the construction supervisions.
I'm a chartered professional engineer in civil and structural engineering, and I work here as a director looking after the structural team. So we've been building up our structural team. We're up to around 20 staff now in the structures area, and working on residential, commercial and industrial buildings across Canterbury.
Next week we're at the North Canterbury Business Awards, and we go to Oxford to have a cup of coffee.